Hello everyone. I'm going to do an example of how to find the centroid of a triangle in the coordinate plane. In order to do that, I need a couple things. The first thing is I need to know what the centroid is. The centroid is the intersection of the medians of a triangle. And the second thing I need to know is what a median is. And the median is a segment that goes from the vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side. So in our example, we have triangle RST with these vertices here. So I'm going to start by graphing this triangle. So my first one, R, is at the point 2, 1. I have S is 5, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then up 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep. So here. And the last one we have T is over at 8, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Up 3. Okay. Connecting those together, we get our triangle. And then what I'll need to do is I'm going to graph the medians. And in order to be able to graph the medians, I need the midpoints of each of these sides. The median is the segment that goes from a vertex to the midpoint. So I already know one of the endpoints of that segment. The other endpoint is going to be the midpoint of the opposite side. So to find the midpoint, we do have a formula. It is the average of the x's. So you add the x values together, divide by 2, and the average of the y values. So add those together, divide by 2. It's basically just the middle of the x's, the middle of the y's. So let's just start with one of these segments. Let's start with RT, and we'll find the midpoint of this. So the midpoint here, my two x values R and T, so 2 and 8. We'll divide that by 2, and our two y values 1 and 3. So 1 plus 3 divided by 2. So the coordinates of our midpoint of RT, 2 and 8 is 10, divided by 2 we get 5. 1 and 3 is 4, divided by 2 is 2. So 5, 2. So we go over 5 and up 2. That puts our midpoint right here. Because that's a midpoint, I know RT is getting split into two congruent segments. And also, if I look at point S, I see that S also has an x value of 5. So S and this midpoint, they both have the same x value, which means that this median, this segment, is vertical. It's coming straight down. Okay, so I have one median. I need at least one more. So let's find the midpoint of one of these other sides. Let's take a look at ST. So S and T are two x values, 5 and 8. Divide by 2. The two y values, 8 and 3. Divide those by 2. So 5 and 8 is 13. So we get 13 halves. 8 and 3 is 11. So 11 halves. So we do have the fractions here, but they are halves. So that's still manageable. If I wanted to rewrite this, 13 over 2, that's the same as 6 and a half. And 11 over 2, that's the same as 5 and a half. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and a half puts us right in the middle here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half puts us in the middle there. So here's another midpoint. So again, these two segments are congruent. And connecting that to the opposite vertex, we have our second median. So our two medians, where they intersect, that is our centroid. Now I could go through and I could do my third median as well, but we know that the three medians are all concurrent, meaning they all intersect at the same point. So the one from T would also have to pass through this point of intersection here. Take a look at the graph. It is on this vertical median, so the centroid also has to have an x value of 5. And then taking a look at the y value, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it looks like our median is at the point 5, 4. So we just got that from looking at the graph, but if we wanted to go further, we could use algebra as a way to actually solve for the centroid. So to do that, we want to set up a system of equations, and I'm going to look at the equation of two lines. So I'm going to extend these out, and I'm going to think about them as lines. I need the equation of both of these. The equation of one of them is very easy. Our vertical one, the equation of a vertical line is always x equals some number. All of these points go through 5, so that means that our equation is going to be x equals 5. Now for my second line, I know the coordinates of r, so r was 2, 1, and I also know the coordinates of this midpoint on the opposite side. That was the 13 halves and the 11 halves. So we want to use these 2 points to write the equation of a line. We need 2 things to do that. The first is the slope. So let's use our slope formula to find that out. We will subtract the x values up top, the y values. So 11 halves minus 1, and we'll subtract the x values in the denominator. 13 over 2 minus 2. So 11 halves, that was 5.5 minus 1, so that gives us 4.5. 13 over 2, that was the same as 6.5. So 6.5 minus 2, we also get 4.5. Anything divided by itself, that will simplify to 1. So that line has a slope of 1. The other thing we need is the y-intercept, the b value. We could use y equals mx plus b to solve for that. I know an x value, I know a y value, now I know my m value. So that would look like 1 for y, m was also 1, my x value here is 2. That just leaves b to solve for. This is just 2, so I can subtract 2 from both sides, and we get b is negative 1. I could also start at r and then just use my slope to work backwards, and I can see that it's also negative 1. So putting those two things together, my other equation, y is equal to slope of 1 times x minus the y-intercept, negative 1. So that's the system I want to solve. The solution to the system will be the point of intersection. Now, one of these I already know x, so that means I can just use substitution to find y. So we'll plug that in, so put 5 in there. So 5 minus 1, we get y is equal to 4. So the solution to the system, the point 5, 4. So our centroid is located at 5, 4.